ever stood before a masterpiece and felt completely overwhelmed by its grandeur. That's the feeling you get when you see Notre Dame de Paris for the first time. For over 850 years, this cathedral has stood as the heart of France, a silent witness to history, faith, and incredible human ingenuity. But how did this icon come to be? Let's travel back in time to uncover the story etched in its very stones. Our story begins in the 12th century, in a bustling medieval Paris. The city was growing, and its old cathedral, the Cathedral of Saint-Étienne, was simply too small and outdated. In 1160, the Bishop of Paris, Maurice de Sully, had a vision. He dreamed of a magnificent new cathedral, one that would reflect the glory of God and the rising importance of Paris as a political and economic center. He wanted a building that would soar towards the heavens, a new style that we now call Gothic. In 1163, the first stone was laid in the presence of Pope Alexander III. It was a massive undertaking, a project that would span generations. Imagine the scene: thousands of laborers, stonemasons, carpenters, and artisans all working together with simple tools and incredible skill. They weren't just building a church, they were crafting a legacy. The construction started with the choir and the apse, the area behind the main altar. The goal was to create a space filled with light, a representation of the divine. This was a radical departure from the dark, heavy Romanesque churches of the past. To achieve this, the architects of Notre Dame employed revolutionary techniques. They used pointed arches, which could support more weight and reach greater heights. They developed the rib vault, a crisscrossing framework of arches that distributed the roof's weight outwards. But this created a new problem. The walls were being pushed apart. The solution was a stroke of genius: the flying buttress. These external arches acted like elegant stone arms, propping up the high walls and allowing them to be filled with huge, magnificent stained glass windows. For the first time, a cathedral could be both incredibly tall and flooded with colorful light. By the early 13th century, the main body of the church, the nave, was taking shape. This is the long central aisle where worshippers would gather. As you walk through it today, you can feel the incredible sense of height and space the builders intended. They wanted you to look up, to feel small in the presence of something vast and divine. Around 1225, the magnificent western facade was completed, with its 3 grand portals and the famous gallery of kings above. And by 1250, the 2 iconic bell towers were finished, though they wouldn't get their famous spires for many more years. One of the most beloved features of Notre Dame is its stained glass, especially the 3 spectacular rose windows. The north and south rose windows, each measuring an astonishing 13 meters in diameter, are masterpieces of medieval art. They depict saints, prophets, and biblical stories, transforming sunlight into a kaleidoscope of divine narrative. It's hard to imagine the awe people must have felt stepping out of the dim medieval streets into this explosion of color and light. The construction wasn't a smooth, continuous process. It was built in stages, over nearly 200 years, and different architects brought their own ideas. That's why you can see subtle shifts in style as you explore the cathedral. The initial plans were modified, chapels were added, and the design evolved. Finally, around 1345, the cathedral was largely considered complete. For the next several centuries, Notre Dame wasn't just a place of worship, it was the center of Parisian life. Royal weddings, coronations, and state funerals all took place within its walls. It witnessed the coronation of Henry VI of England as King of France during the 100 Years' War, and centuries later, the coronation of Napoleon Bonaparte as Emperor. But history wasn't always kind to Notre Dame. During the French Revolution in the 1790s, the cathedral suffered greatly. Anti-religious fervor led to its desecration. It was rebranded as a temple of reason. Its treasures were plundered, and many of its statues, including the kings on the facade, were beheaded or destroyed. The building fell into a terrible state of disrepair. For a time it was even used as a warehouse. It seemed like this jewel of Gothic architecture might be lost forever. Then, in 1831, a writer named Victor Hugo published a novel that would change everything, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The book was an international sensation. Hugo's vivid descriptions of the cathedral's beauty and its romantic decaying state captured the public's imagination. He made people see Notre Dame not just as a religious building, but as a national treasure, a piece of France's soul. His novel sparked a massive public campaign to save the cathedral. Thanks to this renewed interest, a major restoration project began in 1845, led by the architect Eugene Viollet-le-Duc. For 25 years, he and his team worked tirelessly to bring Notre Dame back from the brink. They repaired the structure, replaced damaged sculptures, and cleaned the stonework. Viollet-le-Duc also added his own touches, including the famous 96-meter-high spire, or flach, which became an iconic part of the Paris skyline. He also designed the chimeras and grotesques that peer down from the galleries, the most famous of which is the pensive stridge. These additions were controversial at the time, but they have since become inseparable from our image of the cathedral. Notre Dame then stood through 2 world wars, miraculously escaping major damage. It became a symbol of endurance and hope. The bells rang out to celebrate the liberation of Paris in 1944, a sound of freedom echoing through the city. For decades, it continued to welcome millions of visitors each year, from pilgrims to tourists, all drawn to its history and spiritual power. And then came April 15, 2019. The world watched in horror as a devastating fire engulfed the cathedral. The spire designed by Viollet-le-Duc collapsed in flames, and much of the ancient oak roof, known as the forest, was destroyed. It was a heart-wrenching moment. It felt like a wound, not just to Paris, but to the entire world. In that moment of tragedy, however, something incredible happened. The world united. Pledges of support and donations poured in from every corner of the globe. The spirit that built Notre Dame centuries ago was reborn. A new generation of artisans, architects, and craftspeople have taken up the challenge, using both ancient techniques and modern technology to resurrect the cathedral. They are meticulously restoring the stonework, rebuilding the roof's timber framework, and piecing together the broken fragments of art. The goal is not just to repair, but to restore it to its former glory, exactly as it was. The story of Notre Dame is a story of faith, ambition, destruction, and rebirth. It's a testament to what humans can achieve when they work together towards a common goal. It's a building that has absorbed the prayers, hopes, and tears of millions. As it rises from the ashes, it reminds us that even after the darkest moments, beauty can be restored, and legacy can endure. It remains, as it has always been, the heart of Paris, beating strong. Thanks for joining me on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for more stories behind the world's greatest landmarks. See you next time.